Well, thank you. Got a fire going out of frame there too. Gotta sort out all these pecans from these bur oak acorns. I need more baskets. Where am I gonna put all this? I'm gonna get another basket. Is this the whole live? I'm not sure. I'm just messing around with acorns and some other stuff. First, I got a bunch of bur oak acorns I was trying to separate from the pecans. Canona. What many southeastern tribes use a mortar and pestle for nuts? Yeah, I made this for mesquite beans actually, but it's useful for acorns as well. I have my last batch of acorns that I was grinding up in there. What people would that be that call this a canona? It's just a large mortar and pestle based on historical mortar and pestle used by many southwestern peoples, indigenous peoples, for processing mesquite beans. This is made out of black willow wood. And I have a big pestle made out of mesquite. I just had to dump out some mesquite beans from this basket to use for just putting these pecans that these have their whole green holes still on. You could actually make a black dye out of that, but I have a basket full of pecans and this bag full of pecans. So I think I'm actually just gonna go ahead and put these with those. I'm always low on baskets. Put this out of the way. I'm not doing pecans today. I just picked those up when I was out earlier picking some more of these bur oak acorns, these big ones. Pronounced Ka no na Solagi Cherokee. Oh yeah, we gotta hollowed out maple logs. Cool. Yeah, maple would make an excellent mortar because it's got a nicer, close-grained, harder wood. The willow wood is a little bit soft, but it's easier to carve. So what I'm gonna do first is process out some of these bur oak acorns. I gathered these just like an hour ago because I'd had these other species, but I realized I don't have that many bur oak acorns, and these are probably the easiest to see on camera because they're so big. And normally you might need to dry them out when they're fresh, but it's kind of getting later in the season, and I picked these up off the ground, so they're probably all plenty dry enough, but we'll see. You can crack them open and evaluate their dryness. So I'll just set this bag of bur oak. Those bur oaks are great because I gathered this bag full, and that's that whole basket full in like, I don't know, 20 minutes. But that's partially because I went to an area where they're planted everywhere by the city or developers. So these are a little bit strange though. Well, they're strange in a lot of ways. So that large acorn cup, I just think some of them is completely enveloping, but others, probably at the lower bottom here, because the last tree from which I gathered these, it was kind of unusual in that the acorns were almost entirely being enveloped by that cup. But in other species, which I don't really have, the cup is only in the top quarter, and even other bur oaks, they're like that, or often they're about halfway sticking out. Where did I put my pecans? Up there. So the bur oak is nice because, see that? Bur oak is nice because they got a large amount of kernel in each acorn, but you do have to do the extra step of getting them out of the cup. So we'll check the viability of these. These might all not be great. This one's a little bit moldy, so you can see that one. I'm gonna discard that being too moldy. That's why the way I like to get acorns is really to pull them off of the tree. I don't like to gather them off the ground because they're more likely to be moldy like that, and I don't want to have to crack them open to determine that. But you can gather them off the ground as long as they haven't been sitting there too long. Most of them are probably fine. So here's the inner kernel of the acorn. So all of that is edible, but you can't eat it fresh. You have to grind it up and grind it up to a fine powder and leach out the tannins. But it's not gonna like hurt you to eat it fresh. This one actually doesn't have too many tannins. Some acorns, you try to do that, and it's like a super bitter. And the other factor of variability between different acorn species or oak species is the skin. So around each of the kernels, there's like a thin skin, but this one sometimes they like bind to the shell, and so that's better because it pulls them off. But for things like the red oak, they actually bind to the kernel, and you have to do an extra step to remove that. Yeah, it's used on shagbark hickory nuts to make kanuchi, kanuji. Soup is travel food. Yeah, do you know if they shelled those hickory nuts first? Because I have a video coming out tomorrow showing making how you can crush up hickory or hickory nuts or pecans or walnuts with the hull and add water and strain it to make a milk, or boil it and skim off the oil to get to the oil of those. But yeah, the shagbark hickory and the other hickory species are excellent food resource historically because you get so much fats from them. A lot of wild foods don't have a lot of fats. Acorns are kind of a good fat source, but they're not nearly as good as pecans or walnuts. But yeah, shelling any of those nuts is going to be a pain. So this one, actually, I don't think it's quite dry enough. I'll have to set these aside to dry. But I'm curious about more of these, what they're looking like. Yeah, this one's also moldy. Yeah, I feel like the enveloping cup is not really a great trait because it kind of keeps the moisture in. Yeah, I can tell this one's probably also moldy. And seeing that one, it's like good for the top portion. Because I've picked up plenty of acorns. I've been sitting on the ground for weeks and they're perfectly fine. Oh, that one was on fine. Well, no, I cracked it open, so that one's bad on the inside. But, yeah, I'll toss it on the fire. Hopefully I got a good number of these. You really have to crack them open. Yep, also a little bit gone bad. I was a little late in gathering these. I was mainly trying to focus on the native species. This species is native to Texas, but it wouldn't have historically been found in this area. The city just plants it a lot. People plant it everywhere. Yeah, bad. A lot of these are bad. Let me look at the first ones I've gathered. Underestimated how many of these were going to be bad. I think it is because of that enveloping cup retains moisture, because I was picking these up from the ground and they were like still wet. Yeah, mesh like a powder, put in the ball shape. Well, it sounds good. Yeah, I haven't had the shagbark hickory nuts, but I figure they're pretty similar to pecan. Pecan's one of my favorites. You could make some great foods out of that. I'll have to look into that. I have a few books on the Cherokee historical foodways, but I don't think I've read that one. I'll have to look that one up. This one's also black. Wow, this is disappointing. I did not expect. I wasn't really planning to do this for much of the stream, but I was just figured I'd start out checking these, stoking the fire more than anything. And this one looks good. Yeah, nice. Well, it's not all waste. they're similar enough. Yeah, that makes sense. You can definitely buy pecans very commonly. Pecans are easier to crack their shell. That's why they're became a commercial food source and are historically kind of preferred, because like walnuts, cracking a walnut open and getting to the nut meat is such a pain. But that's why some people use the method I was talking about, where you just crush it whole and make a milk or a oil out of it. This one's borderline. I gotta toss it. Well, I'll have to do that another time. Let's look at this one. Ooh, that one's good. So what I have in this mortar is the chinkapin oak acorns, which look like that. They're, medium sized, but there's not a lot of tannins in them, so they probably won't require a lot of bleaching. I put them in this at first, and then I'll switch them over to my stone mortar for the finer grinding. This is why I'm using a deep mortar, because they'll fly out of here when I whack them real hard with this. And they're still larger pieces. But after a point, this becomes harder to grind them with compared to the stone. Oh yeah, I've heard of the grape dumplings. Those sound really good. Yeah, the acorn's great because it can be a pretty good flour substitute. It's got a good ratio of carbs, but a lot of proteins as well, and a good amount of fats. Probably the most carbs, probably like 50% carbs in the acorn kernels, and then the rest is proteins and a little bit of fats. But yeah, a lot of recipes require making it into like a flour, like making bread. I'm not sure what I'm gonna make with this. I have some that's already finely ground up here. This is chinkapin oak, and I have 4 different species, so I'll be evaluating the relative qualities of each. But trying just paleo methods. So I'm actually just gonna go ahead and move this over to the stone mortar, because I think I've ground them as much as is worth to do in this wood mortar. And but people were sure convinced when I posted the videos of this making this mortar. A lot of people seem to be convinced that I'm just gonna be eating nothing but rock. I'm getting so much rock powder in there. But we'll see if that's true. I mean, I know it's not. I've already done it, but people should try it for themselves. You might get a little bit in there, but just calcium carbonate won't hurt you. It might be good for you, really. It's more extra calcium in there, and it doesn't grind on your teeth. It's far softer than enamel. So, there's my hopper basket, also called That's what the dumplings are called. Yeah, those sounded so good when I first read about them. I was like, I need to make those. I should have made those in last grape season. Yeah, that's also what happened with this mortar. It is like the molkahedin, or even just like a cast iron pan being seasoned. Like you're gonna get iron in your food a little bit, but the seasoning, it kind of forms a layer where, like with this, it's just like a layer of acorn meal. So you're not really getting much of the limestone in there. Yeah, I made this hopper basket to prevent the little pieces from flying out when I whack on it. But it's not as important when they're already ground. But this is probably the best stage to move them over, because when the kernels are whole, they'll still be flying up so far, they'll pop out of even this. And when I get it down